Another day, another win. Welcome back to the new series with no name. Hope you're all well. Geo, I'll start off with an easy one. Is it too soon to say West Ham are back?
Do you know something, Charlie? I get why you've said this because I've seen obviously your thumbnail that you done prior saying it inspired the turnaround and whatnot. And I thought, well, what turnaround? That was my initial reaction because I don't feel we were ever away.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had
I think that's fair.
I think we had some poor performances, but we got wins in those performances. And there's been some disappointing defeats. Everton, Crystal Palace was a disappointing draw, and then also we got smashed by Fulham. Perhaps I'm being a bit naive, but I'm actually, after Freiburg, I suspected, I thought maybe the illness was a genuine thing, right? After yesterday's performance, I'm very sure that I believe it was genuine. I'm not saying you people have to believe it. That's up to you. Make up your own minds. But I believe that actually the illness was actually true because while we played poorly in some games, I've always felt we were trying. I've always thought the attitude was really good. It's just the quality wasn't there. The tactics perhaps were shackling them. But I also thought the effort levels were involved. But Fulham, I didn't think they were. I was really worried after Fulham game, actually. Prior to knowing everybody was sick, I thought, hang on, the players didn't even look like they were arse today. And that's the first time I felt like that.
Yeah.
Possibly ever under David Moyes, actually. But anyway, that's been put in the past. The Fulham game's in the distance now. I've got over it. I believe they were ill. So, are West Ham back? I don't think we were ever away, Charlie. I think we just got better.
I think that's fair. I think it's interesting because when you take the sort of litmus of the fan base and see where they're feeling, it certainly felt like before Freiburg there was a significant chunk which were just like, we are playing horrendous. This is going awfully, and I don't think that's necessarily an unfair thing to say because I think the performances on the pitch were not good enough. You know what I mean? And even just taking Fulham out of the scenario for a second and looking at the rest of it, you know, we were getting wins, but it was a lot of the time you could go, we got away with one there. We got away with one there. I think Tottenham is the one where I think we deserved it in the second half performance, but even first half of that game, you're like, okay, we maybe got away with one there. And the last two games feel like we've actually just fully deserved it from start to end. And I think I would say the exact same thing again against this performance than I would against Freiburg. You know, even though the second half yesterday was more scary, potentially, I still think we nailed it from start to finish. I still think we nailed it. Hello, by the way, to Barry, to Wassim, to Leonardo, to Buff. Good evening. Oh, sorry, good afternoon. I'm so used to being up in evenings that I just said good evening there. It's just a natural thing for me. We'll be taking your comments throughout the show and doing all that stuff. And at some point, we'll figure out a way to get questions beforehand. Maybe on the build-up show, we're not sure. We're still figuring it out as we go. But I hope you're all well. But yeah, I think we fully deserved it from start to finish yesterday. I think we did the right thing in the second half. When you came on at half time in the watch long and you were saying you wanted us to go and get that third goal, as much as I agree, always want to see a third, there was part of me that was concerned that going for it gung-ho in the second half would be more detrimental given the amount of games we have in such a small space of time. And actually, I think by sitting back and doing our defensive stuff and saying to Wolves, go on then, try it, have a go, and being confident in ourselves to go, they're not going to do it, I think was probably the right thing fitness-wise going forward. I think we maybe could have made some subs earlier in that sense, but apart from that, I think from start to finish, I think we pretty much nailed it. Gary O'Neill, you know, they say that thing about Pep, how he overthinks big games. Do you think Gary O'Neill overthought that game, changing to 4 at the back and doing some other things?
I think he took a massive risk, and I think it was unnecessary. They've been playing quite well, reasonably well, maybe with 3 at the back, but it's a formation that suits their players. And I think maybe he felt like Nuri wasn't fit enough for 90 minutes. And as a consequence, he doesn't really trust Bueno, which I agree with. I don't think Bueno's a great left wing back. So because of that lack of option there, maybe because if you're going to play 3 at the back, wing backs become a crucial part of how you play. You need 2 good wing backs, and if you don't have one, then I think maybe switching to back 4 is the right idea. But it played into our hands a little bit yesterday, and especially putting, a centre back up against Kudus at left back, I think was a big error that Gary O'Neill made yesterday. And in fairness, we capitalised on it. We don't often do that. Sometimes we've, not just under Moyes, under Pellegrini, under Slaven Bilic, Allardyce, where you feel the other teams maybe got a bit of a weakness and we don't exploit it or even try and exploit it. And it can be frustrating sometimes. Now, obviously, fortunately for us, their weakness was left back, and that plays into our hands because we can be right side heavy with Kudus and Sufal over there compared to just Emerson on the left when Paqueta goes in field. So it does tally up a little bit, but we took advantage of it. And I thought, Kudus had Totti on toast in the first half and then got him on a booking. In the second half, we didn't really push him, but we didn't need to. We're 2-0 up and in cruise control at this point. And so O'Neill massively got it wrong, but at the same time, I think Moyes got it spot on.
I think that's fair. It's similarly to what we were saying about Freiburg, right? It doesn't matter. Like, we could sit here and go, oh, the opposition weren't very good, but also you still have to beat who's in front of you. You can't complain too much about it. Leonardo saying another thing about the Wolves game that we really aren't talking about was getting shots early at their second keeper and also from corners. It showed that he wasn't sure about coming for crosses. One of the things that always frustrates me when I watch us play is sometimes you see us, especially in the Europa League, for example, you see us go against goalkeepers who don't look super confident with their distribution, be it passing on the floor, kicking along, whatever. They just look nervous and we don't often go for them. When I see that, I want to see our players Robert Snodgrassing it, just straight away, just sprinting at them, forcing them to make things they're not comfortable with doing. Because we saw yesterday, it's such an easy way. You win such high turnovers, and all of a sudden, you have the ball in the final third, and you can do something creative with it from there. And don't get me wrong, I don't think we created enough from that position yesterday, but still, it's just such a big positive when you do see a goalkeeper who is maybe a little bit nervous kicking. Just run at them, force them to kick, because at worst, you're gonna win the ball back in your defenders, Zuma and Aguerd are going to win it. At best, you'll win it very high up the pitch with someone like James Ward-Prowse pushing for it.
Yeah, I thought a lot of his kicks were going to have for throw-ins as well. He was trying to sort of dink it out to the fullbacks, and he was over-hitting them and putting them out for throw-ins. And it's an easy turnover possession for us because we were able to then we were quite quick at getting the ball back in play. I felt in the first time. Whenever it went out, I felt there was a real intent from Sufal and Emerson to grab that ball and get it back in play. And we were quite quick. And I think Bentley helped us in that regards because we were winning throw-ins off the back of his poor distribution at the back. But I agree with what Leo said. We tested the keeper, and I think possibly Kudus's first goal, things like that probably make the attackers go, hang on a minute, the keeper probably should have done a bit better there. Why are you pleased you scored and you're not going to take anything away from Kudus? If you're Jarrod Bowen, you're thinking, surprised he never got that. And when he gets his shot, he hits the post. But you do just wonder, Bowen's maybe been inspired by what's happened earlier to take that on early and have a go. And again, Bentley stood on the spot. He doesn't even move for Bowen's shot that hits the post. Bentley's just stood still. He does not even dive for it. And it's a fantastic effort. And he doesn't see it. But again, it just gives you Bowen confidence. So next time, have a go. He never got into that opportunity again. But I was pleased.
Yeah. And I thought one of the things I was pleased about, again, I said this to you at half time, but with Kudus, especially with both of his goals, where we scored in two completely separate scenarios.
Yeah.
We showed that we can do, from Kudus's ideal, from Soul perspective, he had one where he running one-on-one versus the goalkeeper and then a nice slotted finish with his right foot to the opposite side. The other one, he is under pressure. There are defenders in front of him and he decides to take it, cut inside, put it onto his strong foot and slap it in from range. Two completely different scenarios and also different ways of scoring, one being straight away from the counter-attack from the corner and all these other things. It showed that we were multifaceted. We weren't just doing one thing good, we were doing everything good. And I think that's the big difference. Something I was trying to say a lot on the watch along yesterday is when you do play counter-attacking football, you have to have players in form. You just have to, right? Not even from just a defensive position, because the whole idea, the whole shtick here is you're going to create less chances than other teams, but they're going to be much, much higher quality chances. The XG, if you want to word it like that, and all that other sort of stuff. Simply put, you're going to get less chances, but they're going to be better chances, Look at Bowen's one, look at Kudus' second goal, for example. And if you aren't in form, if you don't have someone as good as Paqueta who's able to pick out those incredible through balls straight into the feet of Kudus, if you don't have someone who's as in form as Kudus is to finish those chances at the other end, it's going to come unstuck because you're just not going to be able to generate something. You might be able to stop goals coming in, and again, that's part of the whole shtick here, is trying to concede as little as possible, which this year is not going very well. But if you aren't able to finish at the other end, you're not going to be able to grind out these wins. And we've grind out yesterday, and Freiburg as well. But yesterday truly felt like everything clicked into place. Everyone is actually in. We actually have a group of players in form, not just Jarrod Bowen by himself, not just Kudus by himself, a whole group of players in form. And frankly, they couldn't deal with it. Speaking about Bowen, and it's something you brought up, and it's something I was speaking about on the thing. Alex says, I think we've played better without Antonio in the squad. # just saying. You said something interesting to me before the show started about Antonio's role. Lay
Yeah,
it out.
I think Bowen's sort of making it his own, really. I think when he first got put up front, the Arsenal game aside, it was sort of felt it felt a little bit like Bowen playing in Antonio's job, if that makes sense.
Mm.
But the last couple of games, it feels like Bowen's playing in Bowen's role as a striker. I feel like he's starting to. I think we've started to mould it a little bit as, and we're not as. We don't play the same with Bowen up front as we do with Antonio. I think maybe initially we probably did, and that was at the detriment of Bowen in the team. But now it feels a little bit more like we're getting the best out of Bowen as a striker. Is he the long-term solution? We need more evidence. Now, I do think the fixtures fall kindly for Bowen as a striker. So we've got Liverpool away, Man United at home, Arsenal away, and then we've got Brighton at home. I actually think those 4 games, Bowen will be fine as a striker. I think we'll be able to do what we did against Wolves and we did against Freiburg with that counter-attacking. I mean, that's the thing with the last couple of games. It's been pure Moyes ball. I don't feel like... I know I've seen a lot of people suggest we're playing really attacking. I haven't felt like that. I feel like, yesterday we scored 3 goals. All 3 goals were counter-attacking.
Yeah, I agree.
We were on the front foot. We were trying to make things happen, but we didn't. We didn't score while we were knocking the ball about and trying to create things from outside Wolves' box. We didn't score like that. We scored by, one, defending a set piece well and breaking. The second one, Zuma read the game well. And then the last one, Souček intercepts it well. And it's just 3 really good passes from Paqueta and 3 really clinical finishes from Kudus and Bowen that gets the goals. And against Freiburg, I felt the same. I felt like it was like pure Moyes ball that we were playing. I feel like we're playing better than we have been, but I don't think the tactics have changed drastically. I think the role of James Ward-Prowse has changed, and I think that's made a significant difference to how we're carrying out the intended tactics. But in regards to how we're going about it, which is score and sit back, well, this is what we've seen against Brighton at the very start of the season. We played the same way against Brighton. We played the same way against Chelsea. It's just that I would suggest our opponents are perhaps more favourable to play against. So it's easier to play against Wolves like that than it is to play against, say, Everton or Crystal Palace, who will sit back and say, you have the ball, what are you going to do about it? But listen, like I said, player performance has increased. Like Paqueta's played well yesterday, but he's been poor the last few games, and those games have coincided with when West Ham have generally played pretty poor. There's a correlation there. But in regards to Jarrod Bowen as a striker, I think the next few fixtures are good for him as a striker. And, we're going to have a bit of an issue when Kudus goes away. Bowen's probably going to have to go back over onto the right-hand side because I think we've probably got more players to play in that striker role than we do out on the right. So Bowen will go back over there. And it'd be a bit of a shame because we're just getting up and running now with the Kudus and Bowen thing. So it's a bit of a strange one. But, I mean, yesterday we saw Paqueta central for 20 minutes or so. It worked. It worked. He got the goal. And then also we had that moment where Paqueta ended up almost breaking the defensive line. But unfortunately, it was at the halfway line. So by the time he got to 18-yarder, Kilman got back in, blocked it really well. But if you can do that 20 yards from goal, suddenly Paqueta's in on goal. So, I think the Antonio role has changed. And I think if those chances fell to Mikel Antonio yesterday, I'm not sure we would have scored.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. The Paqueta sub was interesting to me because obviously the initial reaction is very like, okay, wait, whoa. Let's hold our horses here. Let's actually think this through. We have literal strikers on the bench. Let's think about this for a second. But I think earlier in the season there were a couple of games where Paqueta did end up playing up front, and it was only very fleeting. But in those fleeting moments, I was really impressed by how much it actually worked for us, and shocked by that as well. And I think part of that is that Paqueta has 2 elements that I think make him work in that role. The first one is that he obviously, with the goal you saw it, his ability to flick on is just almost unrivaled in this team. He's so good at the little one-touch passing, the close control, and when you are playing up front singularly by yourself and there are people on top of you, sometimes you only have the chance to touch the ball once. And when it comes to Paqueta, I have confidence that he has the ability to be able to flick it to an on-rushing Jarrod Bowen, or be it Kudus or anyone else in the system, right? I make it work. The second thing is, I actually genuinely think apart from Antonio, he might be the second best person on our team at holding the ball up.
Yeah.
It's just that he has that just surprising strength and also the ability to hold people off with the close control. That means actually when we are playing that system, he will be sort of isolated at times, and that's not too much of an issue because he is capable of doing it. Now, again, it's not ideal, but when we made that switch after the initial panic stations moment where you go, what the heck is going on here? I was like, okay, right, this might work for us. We'll have to see how it goes. We end up getting the third. We then make the subs. We see two up front again, shockingly. We see two up front again after the subs, and it works out for us. I think it is an interesting thing, but I put a poll in chat asking who would you start up front, in quotation marks, when both are fit. Would you start Antonio or Bowen? Just because I'm interested, because after yesterday, and I do think it is potentially slightly reactionary, it made me think maybe striker goes slightly down the pecking order in terms of what we need in January. In the summer, we still very much, regardless, we still very, very much need a striker. We need someone who's going to be first choice for the long term. That's just a non-negotiable, right? I know we have Mohammed there, and I want to see him getting game time, but I'm assuming Ings goes out in this system. I'm assuming Ings is leaving. Then we have to do that. But for the rest of the season, it makes me panic ever so slightly less. Because Kudus exists, that means we have someone to fill in that right wing role who's doing absolutely excellently at it. And Jarrod Bowen is doing his thing. There are some games which just do not suit him up front. They just exist. But thankfully, I think there's potentially more than not. But we'll have to see how that one ends up playing out. Like I said, I do think that's a bit reactionary. But there's the other thing you mentioned, James Ward-Prowse playing further forward. It simply is. It just changes his game completely. It's so good. I think we've often spoken about the idea of trying to force Souček and Bowen into this team. That often is the verbiage we use. They are being forced in for their upside, for the fact that one is really good at taking set pieces and the other one's really good at heading in set pieces. I think putting James Ward-Prowse further forward and bringing Souček slightly further back actually makes the best of both worlds. And for James Ward-Prowse specifically, that's the role he should be playing. I don't think that's forcing him anymore. I think that's just his role. He's so good at doing the pressing thing from the front line. He moves around well. He can drop deep. It just makes such a world of difference.
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy. He helps Bowen. I think it helps Bowen knowing that Ward-Prowse is next to him as well, because often you can see Bowen will always press. Bowen will always hassle centre backs and chase them. And there's nothing more deflating as a striker when you go running after a centre back and they just simply knock it 10 yards at the other centre back and there's no one around him at all. It's almost like your energy, your burst has been for nothing. But with James Ward-Prowse up there, the pair of them can press. Paqueta's and Kudus with the full-backs as well. And suddenly we've got almost like a four-man attack ready for the opposition to make a mistake. And if you do make a mistake, we've got bodies forward as well really quickly. The other thing I will say about Paqueta as a striker, we've not seen this happen yet, but I think it will happen before the end of the season when he's playing in his role for 10 minutes. He's actually pretty good in the air. So when you do get the ball out wide and put the ball in, I wouldn't be adverse to the chance to fall into Paqueta to say, go on and get this header on target. I think he's quite underrated, actually, because of how good he is on the deck. I think his aerial ability goes under the radar. We've seen it. He's scored a couple of headers for us already. That one away to Freiburg was sensational. The leap was fantastic. The actual header was brilliant. He's got a couple of headers for us. And, I guess when he's up front, you tend to be more counter-attacking. Therefore, the crosses are likely to be less. But should those occur, he'll be fine. I'm quite liking Paqueta as a striker. Call it false nine if you want. Because if you're born a Kudus and that ball lands at Paqueta's feet, get on your bike, get moving. Because he will find you. He can find you. And, Paqueta spoke after the game saying about how his teammates are getting used to him playing now and stuff like that. And you can see it. You can see Paqueta and Bowen both. As soon as that ball went from Zuma to Paqueta, both of them were running. They knew. He can find me. He can pick me out. You just have to. All you have to do is get your run right. Don't worry about the pass. That's Paqueta's job. You just get your run right, and you get it right. You've got a bloody good chance that ball's going to land at your feet for you. And also, I know this sounds really. I'm clutching at straws here, right? I really am. But somebody commented on the video yesterday saying about how much of a pleasure it is. It says sometimes we will buy a player that's too good for West Ham. And I get what he means. Don't jump on him. I get what he means. And he says that in a minute, we've got two of them, Kudus and Paqueta. So what a pleasure it is to watch them play. I completely get what he meant. So my response was, well, at the same time, Bowen's hit a height. Bowen's fantastic at the minute. He's really benefiting from them too, but also he's really complimenting them too. Then you had an Emerson, which I never thought I'd say, but Emerson's just superb down that left-hand side.
Yeah.
But also, we've actually got centre-back in a Garrett. Now, while he's a bit flaky at the back, in possession, he's bloody good at those 50, 60-yard balls out to that right-hand side. So when you're Bowen and Kudus, again, if Garrett gets the ball, you know that he can pick you out. So if you do make your run or you go right out to that touchline, there's a good chance that a girl can spray that ball right over and hit you on the chest or your thigh or whatever. And I think it's just, not only have we got top players in Bowen and Paqueta, Bowen and Kudus, we've got the supply from Paqueta, and arguably we've got a supply from our centre back as well. It's just got a wonderful team at the minute, Charlie, and they're really starting to click and gel at the moment. It's just frustrating that we've got the African nations coming up where we're going to lose what is a very pivotal piece of the jigsaw.
Yeah, I think that clicking thing as well, just between Paqueta finding those passes feels like the beginning of something between the two of him and Kudus. The idea of, we already have one great connection down the left-hand side with Paqueta and Emerson. They know exactly what each other are doing. They're able to play the ball between each other, flick it out, and for build-up for us, that's utterly vital. It's one of the reasons I quite like Paqueta on the left as opposed to through the centre, is I just think it completely changes our build-up and is super useful for us. For a team who, David Moyes wants to build up out wide, David Moyes is obsessed with the wings. He loves the ball being there. And when you have someone as good as Paqueta there with Emerson next to him, it just really helps. Him being able to almost no-look find those passes to Kudus because he knows Kudus is going to be doing those things. It's not just the ability to go, bang, watch this no-look pass. It's incredible. Actually, knowing he's going to be making that run, knowing there's going to be space on that side with the quick switcher play is completely different. And I think Carl's fair when he says could be in for Hammer of the Year. I think he's earning a huge amount of plaudits. I personally wasn't keen on Emerson last year, even though I felt like the last couple of games, he did really well, but I was going into the season, I was very hesitant because I was like, there was a long period where I was not convinced by him. I think he's been absolutely brilliant this year. And I think that left-hand side has been utterly beautiful. But yeah, it's just going well, Geo. It's just going very nicely, and I can't stress it.
I think the Oxby makes a really good point here, which is Antonio off the bench.
Yeah,
is actually quite strong. He's a work machine, and it's the last thing that you want when it's 18 minutes. And I think that's a really, really good point because come the last couple of games, we have been looking to make changes in the attacking sense. And the only thing he can do, or the only thing Moyes feels he can do, is there's two variations we've seen now, which is Fernand's coming on for Alvarez, Ward-Prowse dropping back. But then you've got to really shuffle the deck when you do that. But also the other one, which is that Mubama and Ings comes on as a strike partnership. And I have to be honest with you, I've been very, listen, we've been positive for 22 minutes now. I'm going to be negative for the next two. It's been very underwhelming, actually, those two coming on, because you've got one player that's like a senior pro that could argue he's not had fairest of starts at West Ham, and I agree with that. But actually, when he's coming on to these games, he's got a strike partner next to him, which has been the problem. Well, actually, now you're coming on with someone, which is what we've assumed is the issue. Well, actually, even with Mubama next to you, you're still not great. And then you've got Mubama coming on, and I'm not saying he's not good or anything like that. There's a long way to go in Mubama. But I've been hoping he would grab his chance. And no, I'm not expecting him to score, but against Freiburg and against Wolves yesterday, there was a few heavy touches from him and stuff, like his first touch, and that was a little bit heavy. And I was just hoping for maybe a little bit, maybe not polish, but just more composure from him, which says to David Moyes, hey, I'm an option, bring me on the last 10. And yeah, I've been a little bit hoping that those two would perform a little bit better, because you're coming into a high-performing team. In the last two games, you're coming in when the people you're replacing have been fantastic. You're only coming on because they're tired. So the standards are high. You've got to hit the ground running. I just feel like the performance drops off a little bit with them two up front. Weirdly, we'd struggle to make the ball stick more with them two up front than we do with Bowen on his own. So that sub's been a bit frustrating. But Antonio off the bench would be a fantastic option to have, because in theory, he could replace any of them. The person on the right, the person on the left, the person through the middle. Antonio can play any of those roles. And to bring him on, whether we need a goal or protect a lead, would be a fantastic asset. And again, it's about the roles changing. If we bring him on when we're leading, we're looking to win free kicks, get throw-ins, get the ball up the pitch. Who better than Mikel Antonio?
Yeah, I was a big advocate for Andy Carroll being a super sub back when he was with us, and I think the exact same thing could be said of Antonio. It's such a nice idea of, we've been running them ragged for however long, and then in the 70th minute or whatever it is, here comes Mikel Antonio. How many Premier League defenders do you see go, I hate playing against Mikel Antonio? I hate playing against Mikel Antonio. Imagine seeing him come on 70th minute after you're already tired. I agree with you with the Mubama Ings thing. I think part of it is just trying to find a partnership and working at it and then not getting too much time at it. And I would like to see more of it in the future. But unfortunately, I think, January is on the horizon, and I don't suspect we're going to see Danny Ings for a super long time. Whether he leaves in January or not, I think is totally up in the air. I can't say whether I think he will or not, but I do think there is obviously a finite limit on this. And once Antonio is back, for example, as well, you're not going to be seeing that very often. I don't think. I think it's purely this is the chance you've got, and this is what it is. The poll just before we end was incredibly positive towards Bowen. It said 89% of people said they would start Bowen up front ahead of Mikel Antonio.
Is that positive towards Bowen or negative towards Antonio? Because it's different things.
Fair point.
It's very different things. Are you wanting Bowen to start up front because Bowen's really good up front, or are you wanting Bowen to start up front because you don't want to see Antonio start up front? Do you know what I mean? There's almost like a second question there. I think there's an element. I think that would be 50-50. I think someone would say, actually, I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing from Jarrod Bowen, but also it's the domino effect, isn't it? If you were to move Bowen, say in theory, we signed a new striker and we're going to start him. I know what everyone's answer would be. Souček comes out, right? I know that's what people would suggest, right? So then what do you do? So Ward-Prowse, who's been pivotal in how we press in the last two games, now has to retreat back into defensive midfield-ish. Let's call it that. It goes into centre midfield next to Alvarez. So we're now moving a guy who's been quite crucial to the way that we've been pressing. He moves. So Paqueta comes central, which is, I'm not against it, but I do think whilst Paqueta, in theory, on paper, started on the left against Wolves and got 3 assists off the back of it. So he's not performing too shabby out on that side. And I've seen a chart. I'll find it for the next show we do, Charlie. I've seen a chart during the week that had midfielders' creativity. It was sort of like progressive passes and key passes or something like that. So how far they move, how often they're moving ball forward, and how often are they actually doing something. And James Maddison was obviously quite high up, as you'd expect in that. Paqueta was like, wow, like well above everyone and well out in front of. Paqueta was up there with the best in the Premier League at both things. Some were really good at one thing and not so good at the other, and vice versa. Paqueta was bloody good at both. And this is while he's been playing in this role that we're not keen on. So if we were to bring in a striker, my point is, Ward-Prowse moves, Paqueta moves. Who goes on the left? Jarrod Bowen. So now we're going to put Jarrod Bowen, who's been really good out on the right-hand side, over onto the left. We don't know if he'll be as good. He might be, but we don't know. Or we're going to move Kudus, who's been fantastic on the right. We're going to move him now in order to accommodate one striker. You're moving 3 players in your starting 11. And I just think that striker better be bloody good. And that's why I'll do a video about it tomorrow, because Moyes has said he doesn't want a striker in January. Now, my initial reaction was, I beg your pardon, but thinking about it, even though I don't completely agree with it, I get it. I do get it. I think we need a striker eventually. January, I'm not so sure. The only reason we should get a striker in January is if it's Givassi or Bully Dia, because they both have minimum fee release clauses now. So if you don't get them in January, someone else probably will. So if that's the guy you want, you're probably going to have to go get them in January, because that opportunity this summer is probably gone. But if it's not those players, maybe wait for the summer and then see what Moyes has got up his sleeve, because he wants a left winger. Again, I get it. In history tells us Moyes does want a left winger. Let's look at the players we've been linked with. Carlos Borges, who we almost signed. Harvey Barnes, who we bid for. And there's players before them as well. Eberachi Eze, we're going to go that far back. That's the player that David Moyes wanted. So Moyes has always been screaming for a left winger for quite some time, and he's reiterating that he wants one. If he gets one, if we sign a left winger in January, I think you might find what the board intend to do in the summer, and it might not be what a lot of people want.
Is it this one, by the way?
That's it. Thank you, Charlie. Look at that. Because Paqueta wasn't originally in here. Because
and they added it in,
so they sort of suggested that it's because he was like not a midfielder. So the blue dots are the midfielders then, or something like that. So they've added Paqueta in. But you can see there are key passes in the league. He's only just behind, Salah, Kulusevski, Silva, Anthony, Fernandes, and Sterling.
Yeah.
But he's ahead of all of them, bar Bruno Fernandes, for progressive passes per 90. Only Fernandes is performing better than him on those two metrics. So he's the best in the Premier League, bar Bruno Fernandes, and that's him playing on the left.
Yeah, where he's not his natural position and all that other sort of stuff. Yeah, I just remembered it when you said it. I was like, I know I liked that on Twitter. I'm certain I liked that on
This
Twitter.
is the big question, though. If you move Paqueta to accommodate a striker, do you get that performance? I don't know. You might do, but I don't think it's guaranteed. I can understand the hesitancy, but Moyes has also suggested that's not Paqueta's best position. He wants a left winger. So if he gets a left winger, where's Paqueta going? I think he'll be into the James Ward-Prowse role, and then you'll see Prowsey sit back and check out the team. But we'll have new guy, Paqueta, Kudus on the right, and Bowen up front. I think Bowen's staying up front. I think Moyes will be really pleased with what he's getting from Jarrod Bowen as a striker.
It's just the effect I have on people, Exponential Anger. Do you know what I mean? It's just the people, they enjoy what I do.
Look at it. How can you not look at that?
Yeah, it's very good.
Payet stuff. I remember looking at Payet laughing that we have one of the best players in the world. Now, I'm not saying Paqueta's one of the best players in the world, but I'm saying he's, in terms of creativity and whatever, he's one of the best in the Premier League statistically. Look at it. Yeah. It's ridiculous. He plays for West Ham. That guy.
Yeah.
Just behind him is Goodmanson and Burnley.
It's incredibly strong. And like you say, I think right now we've got everything clicking. There's a group that are clicking, and in January when we buy certain people, do certain things, yes, those things are going to move around. And I suspect actually before then, between now and then, we've got a bunch of matches of which we will carry on doing this series. And like I say, we'll figure out some way to sort of take questions in a more organized way beforehand, so we have some stuff going into it as opposed to just flying by the seat of our underwear and the live chat and stuff. But I suspect over the next couple of games, we will see these pieces move around a little bit just because we have to rotate and we have to move around. And what does that mean for the team? What does that mean for who starts? What does that mean for their performance levels? We'll have to wait and see. But as of now, Geo, I'm very, very happy. And I can't lie, it's just nice to be happy again watching West Ham.
I'm excited, Charlie. I'm excited. I still believe, I have hopes that it will still get European football, and I still believe that we can and will finish 8th in the Premier League, which will mean European football next season. I want it. I want European football back. I enjoy it. So,
just 3 years in a row has been beautiful. Imagine 4. But if you've enjoyed that and also this video, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification underneath so you don't miss out on any future videos, because we're going to have other stuff going up today, let alone for the rest of the week. Today we've got more videos going up, and like the video because it helps us out a ton. Thank you for watching, everyone. Appreciate you all, and we will see you next time. See you later, everyone. Bye. See ya.